Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. The 6th anniversary Ultra, one of the best looking Ultras of all time and one of the most powerful Ultras of all time, has faced numerous attacks, but unfortunately the enemy was successful and he's met his downfall. Okay, my name's Zakashi guys, and in this video here we are going to be discussing Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's downfall. This is not a video I'm happy to make, but with the release of the newest Ultra Beast Gohan, it's the nail in the coffin. There's a lot to discuss with this guy, but maybe not so much at the same time because it's only been a couple months since the anniversary. So they really worked hard to make sure this Ultra, even though they sold him as the best thing ever, got out the way and is completely nullified by all the other characters in the meta. It's quite the setup for him. Maybe he'll come back in the future, but we're going to discuss all of this in this video. Press that like button for me. Let's try and get over 500 likes for the boy G4. Each like is a flower for him, but let's get into this, man. So let's talk about his release initially. We all know that this guy released in the 6th anniversary, but they set him up in a good way so that when he dropped, he was very much well off, more than he needed to be. He had two routes. You know he's a fusion warrior and you know he's GT. And we know this year was allegedly the year of GT. Year of GT, my ass, bro. But at least in the first half of 2024, they actually were prioritizing GT. We got a bunch of releases for GT. We got Bomku, the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta Zenkai, Super Baby 2, Super 17, and there was 1% Sparkins to go with most of those guys. So GT had a good roster. It's not like they were an underdog, but they didn't have the spotlight as people expected them to be. Once the anniversary took over, we know that Fusion Warriors was at the top of the game. With the part 1 of the anniversary, they dropped Fusing Super Vegito and Fusing Gogeta Blue, one of the most spectacular units we've seen ever, specifically in terms of looks, but in their prime they were truly untouchable. Top 1, top 2, debatably. I believe they also Zenkai corrupted Zamasu, and this was all prior to the fact of G4 releasing. He was in speculation, but everybody was expecting it with the way that they buffed up GT at the start of the year, the first half, so it was only natural that we was gonna get him, especially with the upset with them not dropping a Fusing Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta in the festival prior. So since the speculation for a Fusing Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta failed in the festival 2023, most people moved it towards the anniversary, but we didn't get a Fusing Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. We ended up getting the Ultra. Now, since this is an essay type video, I feel it's only right to go through his kit, but I'm not going to go through everything. I only focus on the key factors that is relevant for this video. Looking at the main ability, the main two things you want to know is that he's able to go type neutral for 20 time accounts. That's a very big deal because with his element being purple, it doesn't matter who's existing at the time, he's going to be able to go through them. Specifically, Fusing Gogeta Blue existing with the Strike Assault, going type neutral helped Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta cut through anybody with ease. And outside of that, he also applied the buff effects that nullify certain effects, specifically destroy card effects and reduce key. Those two combined made it so that no matter what happened after he pressed his main, he's gonna be able to push through without any stoppage. Every time he enters the battlefield, he gets cover nullification, which makes it super easy for him to start combos. Getting that on entry is a big deal as it makes the character really autopilot. You don't have to think. Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, he's really the definition of autopilot. He's actually an amazing last stand unit. With him, when he's last stand, he gets a bunch of buffs. He's able to go type neutral and it cannot be cancelled. His unique gauge, which I'll get to in a bit, but you already know, will have 100% charge rate. It's so much easier to fill up your gauge if you still have it. He gets an extra level of card draw speed when he already has high potential to draw cards already, and the benefit of health restoration, which is obviously nice because that tags along with his gauge. If his health goes below 50%, he's able to go type neutral against damage sustained permanently. I think this is a really big deal. Even though it only activates once, in regards to the healing that he also gets off it, being type neutral for the rest of the game, just off reaching 50% once, will keep you alive much longer than it would have without. And although he doesn't cancel buffs, if the enemy hits a blue card, a ultimate art, awakened art, or a rising rush while he's on the battlefield, 5 time accounts for his allies will drop so he can switch out to somebody else, keeping himself alive. Now with his unique gauge, it's the type to fill when he takes damage. It fills up really fast. Once it's filled, he seals the rising rush of the enemy for 5 time accounts, and he also heals off that. The ceiling of a rising rush is a very big deal in correlation to what happens next. So when Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta receives an attack from anything that isn't a rising rush, and he can even do this on cover change with the exception of people that have those anti-cover change mechanics, the new Vegito Blue, he will counter it. This is where I've coined the term untouchable G4. You've seen it a bunch of times when he does the blink and then he puts you at a stalemate. It can't be comboed into, but it gives you a chance to restart the game. And then other benefits of this, after the counter activates, he'll draw cards, his next strike arts will do 70% more damage, destroy all of your enemy cards, cancel all your enemy buffs, and seal the main ability for 5 timer counts. But something that's also slept on is that he activates no switching. If they don't have a vanish step, because they won't get their vanish back from activating your counter, you can hit them with a potential rising rush, a blue card, or an ultimate that's almost guaranteed to land because they're at long range and they can't vanish or switch out. And just to pass through the last few things, his green card's the explosive type, which allows him to draw more cards very easily. The blue card destroys all of his cards, and then he'll be able to get vanish restore based on how many cards were destroyed, similar to the tag 4s that dropped previously. And his ultimate art, which we all know has the tap action art, the first character to get that, Ultra Vegito Blue, making Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta the second. The more you tap, the more powerful the ultimate arts becomes. Now we have to start addressing his downfall, the saddest part of this video, but we've got quite the journey here. I'm gonna split this downfall in 2 segments because I feel like there's 2 parts of it that we need to address. Now, even on his release, he was already somewhat countered, but we just didn't know the extent of which it was going to hit. First, we need to address how Majin Buu Saga was able to come up so easily during the anniversary behind everybody's backs. So in the part 1, they dropped fusing Super Vegito and Shin. Everybody just thought Shin was the addition for fusing Super Vegito. Nobody looked into it too much, but it's the part 2 where things get really deep. During the part 2, they dropped Ultimate Gohan and Evil Majin Buu. They completely overshadowed God Goku, but that was enough, just those 2 units, to put Majin Buu Saga on the map. Now, the main thing I want to talk about in regards to those 2 units is that they have the ability to cancel buffs. When you cancel buffs, you stop the enemy from hitting a more powerful attack, especially if they gain the potential to be type neutral. They will lose that in most cases. And Ultimate Gohan being able to cancel off almost everything, even Evil Majin Buu, even though Evil Majin Buu doesn't have endurance, it makes Ultimate Gohan more hell to deal with because he also has endurance. So if you try to hit him with any big attack, he's gonna heal off that as well, cancel your buffs, and because he has endurance, you're still gonna have to break through that. The odds of you breaking through it, because he's also gonna heal every time you do a big attack, I believe it's 3 times, is very low, especially in his prime. So already on UG4's release, he had to deal with Ultimate Gohan and Evil Majin Buu. But something the devs often do in history, I've noticed this, and some people try to deny it, but it's actually the case. When they drop a big unit, or they're planning to, they prep that big unit in the meta by dropping something that is available to counter them. So with UG4, you would know that fusing Gogeta Blue was the main man at the time because of his Strike Assault. His Strike Assault allowed him to counter UG4's counter because it wouldn't get activated once the Strike Assault is chaining. Obviously, we know the fusing Gogeta Blue Strike Assault isn't as great as it was made to be because it doesn't activate immediately. You'd have to start a combo first, which defeats the purpose in a sense, as well as he can't get cover note any other way, so he was quite a liability in some sense. But because he was yellow and he had the best mechanic to counter G4's counter, it was the best option you had, which gave him a bunch of value. So he already had to deal with those 2 things, but it wasn't really a threat that much because Majin Buu Saga didn't have the pure foundation, and fusing Gogeta Blue, although an enemy of G4, he's also an ally, and I'd say because his value wasn't the highest anyways in regards to GT, Fusion Warriors, movies didn't have the stock yet, he was the best option, but not a big threat in the first place, just based on how powerful UG4 is. UG4 can press the main ability, go type neutral, and hit him with an ult, and that ult was almost guaranteed to one-shot everybody, besides from the Majin Buu Saga duo, Evil Majin Buu and Ultimate Gohan, because they cancelled buffs. Now, there's one team I didn't mention that ties in with the Evil Majin Buu Ultimate Gohan drop, and that's Powerful Opponents. Powerful Opponents in the first half of 2024 had a very good foundation. A lot of people were running them, especially with the release of Ultra Golden Frieza, Super 17, Super Baby 2. Post anniversary, so right after the release of Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, the first unit they decided to release was Legends Limited Omega Shenron. And at first glance, this guy being green, everybody felt he was going to be a liability, but we were so dead wrong. When we found out that he had Indestructible, a lot of people considered that he'd be a lot more valuable as he adds to the survivability game. And we already seen a lot of that in the first half of 2024, with Frieza Force, specifically Nappa and Vegeta, Ultra Golden Frieza, having comeback and revival that made a whole new team pop up, which is also Powerful Opponents. But Ultimate Gohan and Evil Majin Buu cancelling buffs, Ultimate Gohan having endurance, adds to the survivability game. So we didn't know it at the time, but things were going to get a lot worse in terms of survivability, and they were pre-prepping the idea that G4 was going to get countered and begin his downfall. With the promotion of Buu Saga, which is pretty much the second half of the year, GT was swept under a rug. Powerful Opponents already existing, but benefiting off the buffs that are yet to come, and in general, survivability, which counters G4 overall. Now going into the second half of his downfall, the ball gets rolling really fast. We get introduced to the sagas from the movies campaign, and at first, We think this is going to be a bit of fun, but the devs have other things in store for us. The sagas from the movies campaign started off really slow. They dropped Garlic Jr. Legendary Super Saiyan Broly was really good looking, but he wasn't the most oppressive, and the element choices were nothing to fear at this time. Even to the point to say Garlic Jr. as a unit was the most well-designed unit at this point, but he's just not popular enough to garner an audience, and off the fact that he wasn't a Legends Limited. But we want to get into the Tree of Might movie releases, specifically with Triku and Turles. These two units shook the game. Triku specifically, his whole intention, the design purpose behind him is to counter Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. I'm not going to go into too much about Triku's kit, but it deserves to be addressed. There's this thing that applies when an ally is inflicted with no switching while he's on the battlefield, which Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta does a lot. He will then reduce the enemy's ki by 100, seal their Rising Rush for 10 timer counts, and seal their main ability. That trio of effects basically renders Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta
completely useless.
Now at this time, the only thing that exists was the Turles squad and Triku, so he didn't have a good foundation to be run on, but it was clearly preparation for a team that was going to thrive, considering that we weren't at the end of the sagas from the movies campaign yet. There's a lot more that Triku does, but just those couple lines there completely changed everything. So at first, a lot of people didn't really feel threatened by Triku because, you know, it's just another Goku. He doesn't even look that great, to be honest. His arts card weren't anything crazy, and his kit isn't that berserk, to be honest, but he serves a very solid purpose. And at first, he didn't have anything to keep him protected, but he's that unit that you need on your team. I like to compare him to a standard 3-point shooter or a complete lockdown defender. Basketball's a 5v5 sport, and in most cases, you just want the best players on your team, but in some situations, you're going to need specialist type players that will specifically do one job. If somebody's good at specifically doing that one job in a certain situation, they might be better than the other player that's completely all-round better. And I feel Triku is exactly that. Austin Reeves, if you will. Only brought him up because he won for the Lakers this Christmas. Now, following Triku's release, they then decided to release Ultra Turles, and this element combination is crazy. But first, let's just start with the element talk because it's actually important. This was a very specific type drop. They dropped a blue after a yellow on the exact same team that support each other, and the blues and Ultra, the yellow specifically made to counter G4. Now, with the release of G4, to protect him, you'd want to run a red because yellow beats purple, so you need a red. In most cases, people were using corrupted Zamasu, but then they dropped Ultra Turles who's blue, and blue beats red that would beat yellow that's going to beat purple. Do you see this line of elements? How they're doing it so dirtily to make sure G4 goes down. So if I bring up all the units that I just mentioned right now, we have Turles, Ultra Turles, easily the best unit on his release. Not the most oppressive, but with the balance of his comeback, it definitely makes him a monster. And then if you take any red that G4 would be run with, corrupted Zamasu, Super 17, it doesn't matter. Turles completely shut down the element red. And Triku, who's yellow, Turles is perfectly protecting him. So he's able to do his job against the purples, and the purple being Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. It was really just inevitable at this point. The devs were cooking up. Now, I don't want to talk too much about Ultra Turles as well, but I feel it's very apparent that he has the comeback mechanic, and he's overall just very tanky. He has potential to break your combo too, which is very annoying. His gauge fills by being on standby, and every time he's hit, it consumes some of his gauge, and every time his gauge is consumed, he's going to reduce the enemy's ki. But going back to his comeback, it puts you in a position where you're forced to switch out, which also kills Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta faster because he wouldn't be able to operate beyond his counter. If he's last stand, it doesn't matter because his ki is going to get turned down to 0, and he's going to lose his vanishing gauge while also having his Rising Rush and main ability sealed. It's a very big problem for him, man. But yeah, that was the sagas from the movies campaign that completely shut down Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, but nonetheless, people were still running him. You know why? Because undoubtedly, he had the most firepower in the game even at this point. It made it very difficult to run him, but G4 is a fan favorite at the end of the day. He's very popular, and even right now, he's still being used, but it doesn't change the fact that it's very difficult to run him. It could be just like that you get taken out, and that's for numerous reasons at this point. But the bias is too strong. People like the way he looks, they like the way he plays. He's very autopilot, and even if he gets melted quick, it's still not enough for him to pretty much get killed off, because unless you're somebody that can one-shot him, that counter's gonna go off and he'll have another chance to play. Bear in mind, he gets 3 counters. But on the topic of that, we have more releases coming up. So I just mentioned, unless you could one-shot him, he's still going to be useful. It doesn't matter if Triku's built to counter him. It doesn't matter if you have the comeback that's going to render him useless. He will backflip out of it because he's untouchable G4. So the developers said, yeah, we need to put the nail in the coffin. Not even 2 months later, they decided to buff Majin Buu Saga even more. And we get the release of an Ultra, a very dangerous Ultra, who's damn near controlling the game to this day, even though it hasn't been that long since its release. But it's the festival, so you know this is crazy. Ultra Majin Vegeta. This guy, you'd think he'd be the nail in the coffin, but he's not. But this guy is a pure assassin sent to dead G4. Ultra Majin Vegeta, he has a main ability that summons his ultimate, but his ultimate, once it's pressed, it locks in the enemy. This guy's a yellow unit, which is the main thing you want to know. He's a yellow unit and an Ultra. So now, yellows are still protected by the blue, which is Turles, but not one, there's two yellows protected by Ultra Turles, which gives Ultra Turles more stock. Triku can run more freely as well because he doesn't have endurance. And then Ultra Majin Vegeta, who also has endurance, while also cancelling buffs, while also having the blast counter, which can guarantee him a free blue, green card that's explosive, and a main ability summoning his ultimate, so he can actually lock you in and snipe you. G4 with no survivability is doomed. We reach a meta where blue, yellow, yellow is the best situation you can run. G4 doesn't have any strong green allies except for Omega Shenron, and when people do use Omega Shenron, it's more worthwhile to run him on a powerful opponent team because G4 is not providing the survivability to be of that value for the team. It's more worthwhile that you run Omega Shenron elsewhere than try to prioritize G4. So outside of people's biases and using him because he's popular, he still does have that firepower. But if every single game you're going to play has Ultra Majin Vegeta, you'd be running him for the sole purpose of getting an ultimate on a blue unit that's going to have a second life anyways. It's a very dangerous situation, and it's honestly just not worth it to use him. But surprisingly, people did not let him go. He was still one of the most used units in the game, reaching a top 10 standard in usage, which is insane. And not just usage generally, these lists always refer to BR70 players and above. So it's players that are playing quite consistently that still choose to use Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. So we've basically hit the peak of his downfall, but that's what everybody thought, but it's not over yet. There's still more to come that's going to work against him in more ways than one, but I guess there's a point where he'll reach somewhat value, which I'm going to explain right now. So I'm just going to glide over it real quick. After Ultra Majin Vegeta, they dropped Legends Limited Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. Maybe that was before, but you guys can correct me. But Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, he's an endurance unit that doesn't cancel buffs, but the main thing is that he's Majin Buu Saga and a Fusion Warrior, so that kind of helps G4 against the yellows, which is a very good bait before the festival, but it doesn't help because Ultra Turles is just that oppressive. But people found him fun, so they summoned. I'm one of those guys, and he could be quite useful actually. But that's before the festival. Even though he's very useful, he doesn't make much noise. He's just a consistently valuable character. Going into the festival, we get the release of Goku Black Rose and Vegito Blue. Very unexpected on both parts. We thought we'd get a Fusion Zamasu and definitely not a Vegito Blue. I don't know what decision that was, but a Fusion Warrior is going to be hype. Disregarding how people felt about the characters, what you need to know is that Vegito Blue comes with a mechanic that ignores gauges. Well, at least he's green, so you know Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta gains a bit of value by countering his element, but him being the guy to counter gauges, Vegito Blue's purpose is not just here to stop G4, because at this point the devs feel like they've done a good job stopping G4 anyways. The problem they created that they now need to deal with is Ultra Majin Vegeta. But you know how the game goes, people are just going to put those characters together because they're very overpowered. So we get a team of Ultra Majin Vegeta and Vegito Blue formed. But not just that, Goku Black Rose, although a lot of people jumped on a bandwagon to say that he was actually not good, just him having endurance, being able to break combos and cancel buffs is enough to be a counter to G4 even more. Goku Black Rose, he came with a mechanic that's similar to nullifying cover changes, but instead of applying it to himself, he applies it to the enemies, so it can't be cancelled in the same way. And you know, that does put G4 at a standpoint because he can cover change strikes and blasts. So maybe not the purpose or the intention, but it definitely does put G4 in more of a pinch. And Vegito Blue just being green isn't enough to make G4 super relevant again, because again, yellow attacks purple. Even if that purple is relevant to attack greens, this unit Ultra Majin Vegeta is a problem. Just based on the way the meta is moving, Triku begins to fade out now based on people using new characters. But then we hit the part 2 of the festival, and the only unit I really want to talk about here is Super Saiyan 2 to Super Saiyan 3 Goku. They did drop a Daima Goku. He's red and he's a cool powerful unit, but he's not exactly relevant right now, even though he does serve the purpose of countering yellows. There's a bigger issue here with the Super Saiyan 3 Goku. This unit's addition led to the creation of infinite combos, which is the first time we've ever seen this in Dragon Ball Legends. An absolute problem that the devs refuse to fix. They're just gonna let it go by based on the release that they plan to drop after. What you're able to do with Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Ultra Margin Vegeta, and Vegito Blue should never happen in any type of game. Because of how often they're all able to draw cards, extend their combos, and have cover nullification, specifically with Vegito Blue ignoring counters, so even if you have the likes of Ultra Margin Vegeta, there's no way to bypass this. And God forbid you run an indestructible unit, because you will never be able to see the end of this combo unless you sack off somebody. But if your indestructible unit is last stand, you're stuck. This team is able to infinitely combo by switching out, drawing cards, pressing green cards, drawing cards, explosive green, drawing cards, and Vegito Blue's green card, which also draws more cards. And there's videos that surfaced of people doing combos for more than 150 time accounts. Even though there's two greens that are very relevant right now, these infinite combos with the yellow protecting the greens isn't enough for Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta to be one of the most relevant units in the game. He's still being used, which is very interesting, and of course there's green so people see the value in it, but it's just the idea that he's such a popular character that people refuse to let him go. And I think the devs definitely took notice of this. So reaching the end and the height of his downfall, the devs weren't satisfied with the job they did to get rid of Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, so they decided to drop the final nail in the coffin, which is where we are right now.
Ultra Beast Gohan.
This unit here has an active gauge where he's able to one-shot almost every unit in the game. Stars may cause results to vary, but when that active gauge is full, that special beam cannon is going to hit and you will snipe that character. Red, it doesn't matter. He goes type neutral, and it's not an ultimate, a blue card, Awaken Art, or Rising Rush, so buffs will not be cancelled. They've built Ultra Beast Gohan, a yellow unit by the way, again, 2 ultra yellows in a row, to not be like all these other units that we've got. Long combos, cover nullification, all of that jazz. The only purpose Beast Gohan serves is to be high firepower so that he can stop the infinite combo madness and suppress everything that the game has been since the anniversary. Survivability, long combos. Beast Gohan is anti all of that because all he cares about is doing major damage to shut the game down. Now, of course, he does his job effectively, but it's still a debate between whether he's the best unit in the game or Ultra Margin Vegeta is the best unit in the game. And when the top 2 units in the game are both yellow, you know what type of story that's telling for Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. At this point, if anybody's using him, they're just a Fusion Warrior main, or they really just like him, because the way he's suppressed right now is crazy. I've never seen any type of suppression of a unit like this in Dragon Ball Legends history ever. They've really gone over the top to make sure that G4 does not make it out of this year alive. Now, regarding the future, I don't know where it's going to go for Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, but what I'm expecting is that Daima is going to get a Fusion Warrior, which is why they dropped so many Fusion Warriors in 2024. We know that Goku picked up some fusion bugs, so it's likely that we're probably going to get Vegito again, or a new Fusion Warrior character that we haven't seen. Maybe they'll use Kakarot's name, so it'll be Kajito or something. That's just me speculating though. But I feel it's very likely we'll get a Fusion Warrior, which will give Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta more value in the future. What I will say is that it's very easy for Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta to return. These yellows get countered, they bring strong reds, purple's back on the map to a degree. So I can't really say with him. The way he's shut down right now is unlike anything before. With Ultra Vegito Blue, which is the previous year's Ultra in the anniversary, the 5th one, they tried to shut him down big time, but he makes returns very easily, and even through all the adversity, people were still using Ultra Vegito Blue, but it wasn't this bad. The peak of him being shut down was Ultra Super Janemba, who disappeared as soon as the festival started. So unlike this year, they've succeeded in a different league. So I truly wonder if G4 will be able to return. I think he's such an aesthetically nice unit, and his counter is so autopilot that people would always want to use him. If they get an inch of space to use him, they will. And even through all these yellows existing, these 2 powerful ultras who are controlling the game right now, people still opt in to use him. And the only question you can ask is, why? At the end of the day, we like him. That's going to be it for this video. There's not much more to say because he didn't even release that long ago. When I drop a downfall video, it's usually a while after they release, or if the unit on release is just super bad. But boy, I've never seen such an attack on a unit like this before. We know who the GOAT of 2024 is. Think about how many oppositions you have to bring to counter one person. I didn't know this was Jujutsu Kaisen, the 4th Great Ninja War, Avengers Endgame. Like, what are we doing here? I've never seen a jumping like this before in a game. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you haven't already, make sure to press that subscribe button. We're on this grind to 200,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name is Zakashi, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one, man.